Be careful with the quiet ones, not the loud ones, not the ones who announce their pain to every room they enter, not the ones who perform their suffering for sympathy and attention. Be careful with the ones who went silent because something happened to them. Something deep, something that cracked them open at the center of who they thought they were. And instead of breaking completely, they disappeared inside themselves for a while. And when they came back out, they were different. Not louder, not angrier, just different. Harder to read, harder to reach, harder to shake. And if you have ever been that person, you already know exactly what I am talking about. This is not a speech for the comfortable. This is not motivation for people who simply want to feel good for a few minutes. This is a conversation about what truly happens when pain changes a person completely. When betrayal teaches what loyalty never could. When rejection removes every illusion you were clinging to. When loneliness forces you to finally meet yourself and not look away. This is about what happens when broken people stop breaking and start building. And when that happens, they become dangerous. Not dangerous in the way the world fears. Not dangerous with weapons of violence or cruelty. But dangerous in a way that most people will never fully understand. Hard to manipulate, hard to distract, hard to discourage, hard to destroy, because they have already been destroyed and they rebuilt themselves from the inside out. Let me tell you about being broken. Let me tell you what it actually feels like, because most people talk around it. Most people use clean language to describe a very dirty experience. Being broken is not poetic. It is not cinematic. It does not feel noble while it is happening. It feels like waking up in the morning and not knowing who you are anymore. It feels like looking in the mirror and recognizing the face, but not the person behind the eyes. It feels like reaching for the version of yourself that used to exist and finding nothing there. It is the aftermath of betrayal, when someone you trusted completely looked you in the eye and chose themselves at your expense. When the person who knew your deepest wounds decided to use them. When someone you loved without condition made you feel like a fool for loving them. That is betrayal. And it does not just hurt you, it rewires you. It makes you question your own judgment. It makes you distrust your instincts. It plants a quiet, persistent voice in the back of your mind that whispers, you should have known better. And rejection. Let us talk about rejection honestly. Because rejection is not just a no. Rejection is a mirror held up to your deepest fear. The fear that says, maybe you are not enough. Maybe you never were. Maybe everyone else can see something about you that you have been working very hard not to see about yourself. That kind of pain does not pass in a day. It settles in. It becomes a companion. It sits with you in the silence of 3 in the morning when the rest of the world is sleeping and you are alone with every thought you have been trying to outrun and failure. The kind that is not just about a project or a goal. The kind that makes you feel like the failure is not what you did, but who you are. The kind that makes you wonder if you were foolish for even trying. If the people who said you would not make it were simply seeing something about you that you were too blind to admit. And then there is loneliness. Not the loneliness of being alone in a room, but the loneliness of being surrounded by people and still feeling completely invisible. The loneliness of having conversations but never being truly heard. The loneliness of performing a version of yourself that you do not even recognize anymore because the real version felt too fragile to expose. That is the kind of broken that changes a person. And here is what no one tells you about that level of pain. It does not stay clean. It spreads. It bleeds into the way you see the world. It changes how you interpret kindness. You start to wonder what someone wants when they are nice to you. It changes how you handle closeness. You start to pull back just before something real can form, because somewhere in the back of your mind, you are already preparing for the moment it falls apart. It changes your relationship with hope itself. Because hope, at your lowest point, feels less like a comfort and more like a trap. This is where most people get stuck. And I want to say that clearly, without judgment, because I understand it. The transition from pain into bitterness is one of the most natural psychological processes a human being can experience. It is not weakness. It is the mind protecting itself the only way it knows how. But it is also a prison, because bitterness convinces you that your pain makes you right about everything, that the world is cruel and cold, and that anyone who trusts it is naive. That protecting yourself means never opening again. That survival means closing every door so permanently that no threat can ever enter. And neither can anything worth living for. Some people spend years there. Some people spend entire lifetimes there, rehearsing their wounds, keeping score, measuring every new relationship against the ones that failed, waiting for the next betrayal before it even has a chance to become anything else. They did not choose to be bitter. They chose to survive. But somewhere along the way, survival became a cage. And then there are the others. There are the ones who sit inside that same darkness, who feel that same weight, who carry that same collection of wounds and betrayals and disappointments and failures, who know what it is to be reduced to almost nothing. And they make a different choice. Not immediately, not all at once, not in a dramatic moment of sudden clarity. It is quieter than that. It is a small, almost invisible decision made in the middle of an ordinary night. A decision that says, I am not going to let this be the end of the story. I am not going to hand this pain the authority to define me. I refuse to become a monument to what broke me. I will become something else entirely. That is where the transformation begins. And it is not comfortable. It is not inspiring in the way inspiration is usually sold. It is slow. It is unglamorous. It requires a specific kind of discipline that has nothing to do with motivation and everything to do with will. Because motivation is a feeling. And feelings are unreliable. They come when conditions are favorable. They disappear when they are needed most. Motivation tells you to start. Discipline tells you to continue when every part of you wants to stop. Broken people who transform themselves are not motivated people. They are disciplined people. And there is a profound difference. When pain removes your illusions, when it strips away every story you were telling yourself about who you were and what you deserved and how the world worked, something strange and unexpected happens. You are left with clarity. Raw, uncomfortable, unfiltered clarity. You see people more accurately, not cynically, accurately. You stop projecting what you want to see and begin seeing what is actually there. You learn to read what people do instead of what they say. You stop confusing performance with character. You stop mistaking familiarity for safety. This is not coldness. This is wisdom. Hard-won, costly wisdom. The kind that cannot be read in a book or learned in a classroom. The kind that only comes from experience. And alongside that clarity comes self-awareness. Deep, sometimes brutally honest self-awareness. Because when the pain is severe enough, when you are forced to sit quietly with yourself for long enough, you begin to see not only how others failed you, but how you failed yourself. The patterns you kept repeating, the standards you kept lowering, the warnings you kept ignoring, the version of yourself you kept abandoning to keep the peace or earn approval or avoid conflict. This is the part of transformation that is almost never discussed because it requires a level of honesty that most people are too comfortable to face. It is far easier to remain entirely in the role of the wounded. To make your pain the entire explanation for where your life is. To look only outward at who hurt you and never inward at what you allowed. At what you chose. At who you were becoming before the breaking point forced you to stop and look. True transformation requires both the courage to acknowledge what was done to you and the discipline to take full ownership of who you are becoming in response. And that is where identity begins to shift. Because when you choose discipline over dissolution, when you choose focus over bitterness, when you choose silence over performance, when you choose to build rather than mourn, you are no longer the same person. You begin to develop a relationship with silence that most people never will. Because the world trains people to fear silence, to fill it, to mistake it for weakness or defeat or absence of substance. But people who have been truly broken and rebuilt understand something different. Silence is where clarity lives. Silence is where strategy forms. Silence is where the identity you are building takes root. When you stop explaining yourself to people who were never truly listening, when you stop defending yourself to people who have already decided what you are, when you stop announcing your progress and simply allow your results to exist quietly and undeniably in the world, that silence becomes power. A specific, unusual kind of power. The kind that does not need to be announced. The kind that does not require permission or validation. The kind that other people sense before they can fully explain why. This is what it means to become dangerous. Not threatening, not aggressive, not intimidating in any theatrical sense, but quietly, deeply, undeniably formidable. Think about the two people who walk through the same fire, who face the same rejection, the same betrayal, the same failure, the same season of absolute darkness. The first person never fully leaves it. They carry it forward like a weight strapped to their back. Every new relationship is colored by the old wound. Every new opportunity is filtered through the lens of past failure. Every moment of potential joy is undermined by the voice that says, "This will not last. This will end badly. You will be hurt again. You always are." They are not cruel people. They are tired people. People who were hurt before they were strong enough to metabolize the hurt properly. People who deserved better and never received the tools to keep moving forward when better did not come. They became dangerous because they stopped living for the story other people told about them and started writing a different one. From the inside out. In silence. In discipline. In the slow accumulation of days that added up to a transformation no one fully noticed until it was already complete. And now, they are here. Carrying everything they have been through, not as a wound to be pitied, but as a foundation to be respected. Not as a story to tell for sympathy, but as evidence of what is possible when a person refuses, absolutely refuses, to be defined by what tried to destroy them. Pain did not make them who they are. What they chose to do with the pain made them who they are. And that choice, that quiet, unglamorous, daily, relentless choice to transform rather than to decay, that is the most powerful thing a human being can do. Be careful with the quiet ones. Not because they are cruel, but because they are certain. They have been to the bottom. They know what it looks like. They know how to survive it. And they will never fear it again. That is what it means to become dangerous. That is what it means to be forged. If this found you in your season of darkness, if this landed somewhere deep and real inside you, leave a comment that says, "Pain built me." Because you are not broken. You are becoming.